Hey guys, so today we have Andre
Yes.
with us. How do you pronounce your last name?
Scaife.
Scaife, Andre Scaife.
Yes.
And Andre has been doing real estate for many years now. How many years?
15, about 15.
15 years. He first started when he was about how old?
I would have been a little over 30 at the time. So
Okay.
actually it's probably 20 because I was in my mid-20s, 46. So I'd say 20 years. That's probably closer, more
20 years.
accurate.
All right.
Yeah.
So one of the topics we're discussing is instead of having a TSP, you can have real estate. So most Americans have a retirement account, and that's what you think about. So just imagine having nothing but houses instead of a TSP. So how does that work out?
But first of all, I just think having something to invest in is more important than anything, because having your money work for you is a lot better and more important than having you work for your money. But, when it comes to that, you have the option to, with traditional retirement plans, people want to stack up a certain amount of money before they retire. Like, I want to have X amount of $1 million before I retire so I can live off of that. My personal philosophy is, building up a real estate, like I have rental units, so I build that up to where I have enough rental income coming in to where I don't need to work. So you still have your principal and the value of your homes, because you can sell it obviously and cash out, but you're living off of the residual income that's coming in from your rentals. Mm-hmm. So that way, that's what you live off of when you retire. And in addition to that, this is my philosophy, where you have that money that you pass on to your children. Like, you retire, you pass away at whatever age. Now your children now own these properties. Now they're getting that same residual income. They still have all the principal that you built up over the time, and you're building generational wealth for your family.
Okay. So one of the specific notes that I really want to touch on are, is it safe? How do you get started? And what are some ways that specifically we can get started now? Like maybe an average American worker. First, let's say, how safe is it?
My personal opinion is I think it's
yeah.
very, very, very safe. And I say that because, think about this. If you bought a house, it's 2019 now, so if you bought a house 30 years ago in 1989, now you think about, in that time, we've hit the worst recession this country has ever had. Mm-hmm. And if you bought a house in 1989, that house is worth more today than it was in 1989.
Right.
Right. And obviously, the market will always go up and down. But over the course, in the long run, you're going to keep your principal. And let's say something devastating happens and a meteor comes and destroys your house, you have insurance. So losing your principal is very hard. It's not impossible, but it's very safe. And then, so, yeah, I think it's very, very safe.
So you have insurance. That's something people really don't think about. Like if you have an earthquake or a fire, there's fire insurance. That's usually covered by the lien holder or whoever's holding title. Is it title? Or whoever has a lien against
Yeah, whoever has a lien. If you have it for enclosing, you should have it yourself, and it's not required. But if you have a lien, like obviously a mortgage is the most common lien, so they're going to require that you have insurance. So you're going to have insurance if you're still paying notes on the property.
And what if like a renter damages your property?
Well, that can come up as a loss and I say that because, let's say I have a renter, you can have insurance for that.
Oh, okay.
And
renter's insurance?
Yeah, there's a such thing as the owner. Like, you do have renter's insurance for the renter, but the owners do also have insurance. I honestly don't use it, but like I do replace carpets and things every couple of years. So, but if a renter steals appliances, that has happened. That's a loss. You have to replace the appliance. If they move out and take the stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer, you have to replace that. If they pull up your carpet, you have to replace that. They put holes in your walls, you have to replace that. Yeah. So those are losses. I will say over time, you still come out with a nice profit, but those things happen.
And real estate tends to appreciate with time, right?
Yes.
So that principal value that he's talking about is, let's say 20 years, you bought a house for $50,000. That principal should stay there. And as it appreciates, that difference that you have in value, that equity, you can cash out, liquidate it eventually if you want, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we talked about how safe it is. What's the first baby step?
if I was to give advice to somebody in that situation, there's a lot of things that you could do. There's ways that you can acquire properties for very cheap. If you don't have any money to put down, the best way to do it, and this, in my personal opinion, is risky, and the reason I say that is this, is going to hard money lenders. And anybody who wants to purchase a home can purchase a home. Like if you need a house, you find a house that's, let's say like in Tucson, the average house is a little over $200,000. So let's say I see a nice neighborhood, where all the houses in this area is $200,000, but this house needs work, and I can buy it for $50,000. That's a lot of equity in it. That's a lot. So you can get a hard money lender that will let you borrow money to get that home. So you can go in there, fix it up, and you will have to make like interest only payments for X amount of time. Those interest only payments are going to cost you obviously a couple $100, obviously depending on your interest.
Right.
But let's say you put $50,000 into it, so now you're $100,000 into the property, and then you turn around and sell it for $100,000. I'm using like a best case scenario because that does not come across a lot. You don't see that a lot. I mean, in the years I've been doing real estate, I've seen something like that literally 3 or 4 times. Those don't pop up a lot. But if you see something like that, that's kind of like a best case scenario. But if you have something like that and you don't have a lot of money to put in, that's the easiest way. But if you have some money to put in, there's a lot safer ways. And the reason why I say that is risky is this. Let's say you fix the house up and you can't sell it. You're stuck. And you're going to have a balloon payment at the end of a year, 2 years, or however long you had that. And that's where your risk will come in. Something that is a lot safer, because once you get into houses and you get to flipping, when I started off, I did have a little bit of money to put into it. I had a situation like I just mentioned, that I didn't have that much equity in the home, but I had enough to where I could make a nice profit, and I just repeated that over and over. If you don't have money to put in, if you do have money to put in, there's a lot safer ways to do it. If you could, whether you borrow money from your friends or if you can get a personal loan, that could be a lot better. But to get a personal loan, you have to have good credit, because like in the situation you just said, I assume that the person may not have credit to get a personal loan or something like that. Or if you have a home that you currently own and you want to take equity out of your home or something like that to finance, and you want to do the exact same thing, you're going to pay a lot less money to purchase the home. Mm-hmm. That will help you a lot and you don't have the risk because you'll have a lot longer to pay it off. But those are 2 of the best ways to do it. And starting off to generate income, again, I think the long term in terms of renting is a better way. But to start off, you have to have money to purchase those types of properties. Then, obviously, you can talk about purchasing your properties outright, owning them free and clear, versus leveraging and borrowing them from the bank, and having the extra cash flow to where I have a mortgage of $1,000, but I'm receiving $1,500 a month, so I get $500 cash every month. There's that way. In terms of the long term, if you can, obviously, most people won't be able to purchase a property outright to own it free and clear to rent. But I think I kind of explained the best ways that I think to start off.
Okay, so we went over traditional financing, hard money financing, and personal financing with a family member. So you definitely do need cash. We're not going to get into that about financing, but it's I don't want to say easy, but it is very possible and feasible. That would be another conversation. Yeah. All right, so we talked about how safe it is. That's you're going to have to mitigate risk on that and do your own assessment because every situation is different. We went over financing. Now let's talk about what it feels like to actually not have a retirement account and solely rely on your homes.
So, I think having the income coming in, because I think in the rental market, people always need a place to live. So I don't think I will ever have an issue with not having the income coming in. If people stop paying rent, I would be in big trouble. But, since I don't see that happening, I think it's very safe.
And in how many years?
How many years do I want to retire?
No, have you been renting and you haven't had someone just completely stop paying on all your properties?
Oh, never. Even starting off with The first one that I purchased was a duplex, and I've always had at least one person in there. Having 32 units now, being at full capacity currently, it's not much of an issue. If somebody moves out within 60 days, somebody else is going to be in there. So I don't, to have no income, I don't think I don't see it happening. Even put it like this: if I went with 32 units, if I went down to 10, I could still be comfortable, and that's highly unlikely that would ever happen. Okay. Obviously, the more units you have, the safer you are.
Right. Especially when you own them free and clear, right?
Yes. Like if you have one rental unit, obviously that could be scary, because if one person moves out, you would have nothing. Even a duplex is kind of risky but obviously the more you have, the less you have to worry.
Right. So your mortgage might be high, it might be low, depending on how much you put down. So if you don't have a renter, then it could potentially be all right if your payment's only $300, $400, right?
Right.
Versus having to pay $1,000 on a single residence,
yes.
Single unit.
Yes.
Okay. So what about let's say you retire, you have all these homes, and you retire. How do you liquidate?
Well, you could sell. Obviously, selling takes time, because you sell a multi-family, because they have a longer days on market than a single family home. So if you want to sell a 4-unit complex, in today's market, you can sell a single family home in Tucson because it's more of a seller's market, and that's today. But the market goes up and down. But you could almost any market you could sell in 90 days. Even in the poor market, buyer's market, 90 days is like worst case scenario. Where unless it's a horrible market, but generally we'll just say that. And with a multifamily, one property, you would, even today I would expect 90 days, 6 months,
90 days.
because you don't have as many people trying to purchase multifamily. So it would take to totally liquidate. I wouldn't expect to try to liquidate like what I have, which is not extraordinary. I know people want a lot more than I do. I wouldn't expect to liquidate in less than a year.
Okay.
So it would,
all the properties or just
all of them? If I wanted to sell everything,
oh, wow.
I wouldn't expect to be able to sell everything in
a
a year.
But I mean, that's a lot. Really
That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think it's possible to do in 6 months, but I always think about worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm. So what about the rate of return? So let's say you have a traditional TSP investor is linked up, synchronized with the stock market, and then you have other people like Andre